A transfer of rulership is coming, and the kingdom of heaven will be on earth. Righteousness will be spread throughout the whole four corners of the earth. Wickedness will be put down. Eternal life. That's what's promised to the elect. All right, all Israel, but it starts with the elect. And that's how the earth will be governed by immortals, perfect angelic forces who are going to come down and rule on earth. Extraterrestrial bodies will be able to do things that humans do, but in heavenly bodies. Like eating, drinking. Did not YAHAWASHI say he's going to drink wine with us in the kingdom? Well, how do you drink wine with a spiritual body? Well, we're going to have out of this world capabilities in those new bodies.
Look, when Babylon is destroyed on fire, it's going to shake up the whole world. We're going to be beamed up. The hopeful elect, if we're the elect, we're going to be beamed up. And we're going to see this destruction pursuant to Psalms 91 and other scriptures. And we're going to hover over Babylon and we're going to see the destruction. We're going to get a ringside seat to the war of Armageddon. And then we're going to come back down. When we come back down to the earth, we taking everything over. The second to the Most High shall take the kingdom.
All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, YAHAWASHI Bahashem Kakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds. In the name of Yahweh Bahashem YAHAWASHI, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners who may have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bahashem YAHAWASHI. All right. And what I want to get into today, all right, is a continuation of the book, all right, of 2 Timothy. All right, we're made to the second chapter, you know, and the theme, all right, of this chapter, you know, being dead to this world, all right, and alive in YAHAWASHI, you know, because as we've been awakened in these latter days, all right, we're constantly understanding more and more, okay, that we're here, all right, in preparation for the kingdom to come. Okay, this world is finished. This age, all right, this rulership of Esau, Edom, and everything that he's established, all right, is done. Okay, it's wicked. Okay, and we're constantly, you know, separating and dying more and more to this world. Okay, and being alive in the one to come. You know, and that's something that, you know, we understand more and more. You know, we come in, you hearing that being dead to the world, but then, you know, it comes a point to where, okay, it's like, okay, I see what this is saying now. You know, it's a time to where these things really, certain things really begin to click, you know, as the Lord is required, you know, more of us in these times. You know, we on the final stretch, man. This is the home stretch. Okay. So let's go into it. All right. This is 2 Timothy 2:1, and this is NLT. It says, Timothy, my dear son, be strong through the grace that the Most High gives you in the YAHAWASHI HaMashiach. You have heard me teach things, all right, that have been confirmed by many reliable witnesses. Now teach these truths to other trustworthy people who will be able to pass them on to others. Yeah. So one of the main thing is scripture speak about flipping our talents, and we flip our talents by as we teach. There's other men, okay, that's learning this word and they're able to go teach. Okay, so these talents, the ability to teach this word given to us by YAHAWASHI, well, you flip talents by teaching men and equipping them, okay, with the understanding to teach. And it began with our apostles and elders, their elders, okay. The word went forth, all right, and the teaching started to go out, okay, and men, all right, prophets, just to sum it up, okay, you have prophets, okay, that's birthing other prophets in the spirit, and this is what this word is to do, okay, for what? The edification of the body, because Yahweh Shai, all right, matter of fact, let's go here to the book of Matthew chapter 9, we get a precept on it, okay, this is Matthew 9, okay, and then it says to teach, trustworthy men, okay. Let me see here. So he was real, during that time, he wanted uh Timothy to be, okay, real particular, okay, and who he was, breaking these things down to, okay, because, Jake wasn't right. You see, now in this age, we can't control who, listens on the internet, okay, but as far as being in this inward circle, because there's only so much you get on the internet, all right, to really be equipped, to teach, man. You have to be a part of something. You have to be a part of a fold, Jake demonized the camps, man, but the camps is the best thing that ever happened to me. The best thing that ever happened to me was a camp, and that's another story, but to really, be cultivated, as a teacher, okay, and you have to be on the inner circle. It's all according to the will of Yahawah Shai. Now you read Matthew 9:36, it says, when he saw the crowds, says Yahawah, he had compassion on them because they was confused and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. So Yahawah looking at, Jake, during the time, okay, of his ministry, okay, which there was no leadership, because the Pharisees, all right, the scribes, the Sadducees, the chief priests, all right, the people that was in leadership, either the Pharisees was being overbearing with the law, the Sadducees, all right, were all up the Romans' ass, okay, sell out, black boule type niggas, okay. So Jake really didn't have no sound leadership, okay, and I was trying to look at them like they through, you know. So he said to his disciples, the harvest is great, but the workers are few, you know. So the harvest, will represent, the elect, all right, the elect being ready to be taught, okay, but the workers, all right, which will be the prophets, all right, the teachers are few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest. Ask him to send more workers into the field, more teachers, man. And that's why Apostle Paul, um, with where you go into this time, you have Elder Apostle Har, he the brothers, they first hit the highways under the apostles. They always tell the story. Eliasha Wumba goes into it how Elder Apostle Tahar, really lit a fire, okay, on the brothers to go out there on the highways and byways to go teach, put more workers in the fields, okay, which that benefited, the church tremendously, camps everywhere, started popping up everywhere, and steady growing, certain camps now have to break up into, okay, 2, 3 camps, you see, start off as a few men, then the whole camp, and now you have 2, 3 camps, okay, because of the growth in YAHAWASHI. Okay, and this is why we're here, man. We're here to edify, just like Elder Apostle Hart says. Nate does all these marches with all these men and making all these appearances, and you know, now those men should have been all right, separated, put on corners, and been teaching, man. Okay, that's the most powerful thing we can do is teach this word because it's the power of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai going for, especially when you're teaching the correct doctrine. Okay, so let's go back to 2 Timothy 2:3 says, endure suffering along with me as a good soldier of Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. Because remember, Apostle Paul he was in bonds, he was in prison at this time, right before he was beheaded, you know. So this is a heavy time for him. So he like endure suffering along with me as a good soldier of Hamashiach. Soldiers don't get tied up in the affairs of civilian life, for then they cannot please the officer who enlisted them, and who enlisted us is Yahweh Shai. And see, you gotta understand, we're not civilians anymore. Okay, we're truly spiritual. Put emphasis on spiritual. All right, we're spiritual soldiers, man. Okay, we're in the front lines of a spiritual war. We're not civilians anymore. Okay, the way the stakes are very high in what we're doing. Okay, this is why Yahweh Shai say what count the cost. Okay, because our life is different now. Okay, soldiers are on assignment. They're sent and dispatched on assignment. Okay, they can't get caught up in the civilian life. Okay, they have their moments, little times of downtime, but they're most of the time, hey, they're on alert. Okay, so we have to really move, all right, on assignment, man. We have to move based off assignment, man. Our life can't be full of chilling and feasting. Nah, man, we're on assignment. Okay, and every brother assignment, is different, but we all on the same mission. Different offices, but the same mission, man. Some brothers, are all right, task, a little more, okay, or it's different, something different is required. But at the end of the day, okay, we're not civilians anymore. Okay, we haven't been civilians in a while. All right. And it says, for they cannot please the officer who enlisted them. Okay. Now, even Yahweh Shai, all right, just to get a precept on that. Let's get this in the book of Luke, chapter 21. All right, Luke 21 and 34. It says, watch out, okay, or take heed to ourselves. Don't let your hearts be dulled by carousing and drunkenness. Yeah, man, like the civilians of Babylon. See, the civilians of Babylon, okay, are in this constant stupor. They're chasing the dopamines, whether it's through social media, whether it's through sex, whether it's through drugs, whether it's through, drinking, partying, they're just drunken. They're in this constant state. They just want this never ending party. Okay. So we can't be dulled down like these people. You see? Because America, the culture of America is meant to dull you down. Okay, just keep you distracted with bread and circus and celebrity gossip and all this bullshit. But then even with us, we can't get caught up in, these little affairs of family, man. You see, hey, the Apostle Paul said, "Those that have wives be as though they had none." Okay, and it's not going to be like that 24/7. There's going to be moments to where we're just out of pocket, man. Okay, I see that the dinner table is going to be vacant, at times. You see, you're going to miss a game or two, or you're going to miss you're going to miss some things, man. Okay, So we have to understand that living this American Carl Winslow family matter, Uncle Phil, you in that spirit, it door you down. It Homer Simpson you, man. you know? And it says, and by the worries of this life, don't let that day catch you unaware. So we can't be too caught up in the worries of this life, man. Because this life is full of stress and anxiety, man. The cares of this world, to where the mass majority of the people, we're just living to pay bills, you know? The mass majority of people, because everyone's stressed and people try to put their stress on you, you know? They try to hand off, unload their stress upon you, man. So we can't be too engaged with this shit, man, and these people. Okay? It said, don't let that day catch you unaware like a trap. Okay? Because we know Esau Edom, he's moving in with this NWO. That's why I say we got to be on point. We got to be sober minded in these times, man. Knowing where we stand. Okay? We're on our watch. You see, we are on the spiritual front lines, man. We are not civilians. Okay? It said, for that day will come upon you, will come upon everyone living on the earth. Keep alert at all times and pray that you might be strong enough to escape these coming horrors and stand before the Son of Man. Okay? So Abaratazah, we stay alert, man, at all times. Okay? On our watch, man. You see? I said, we're not civilians, man. All right. As we've been called, we've been enlisted by YAHAWASHI, okay, in this spiritual war, man, and to be watchmen, okay, to be on lookout. Okay, we're on the lookout for Esau, how he moving, and we on the lookout for YAHAWASHI's return. Okay, and they said these coming horrors. All right. The Lord is finna turn the earth into a horror house, man, especially here in America, man. Okay, so we need to be on point in the spirit, more than ever. Now let's get this again. All right, let's go back to 2 Timothy chapter 2. Okay, in verse 4, and it says, "And athletes cannot win the prize unless they follow the rules." Okay, now when you read this in the KJV, all right, let's get this real quick. All right, this 2 Timothy 2:5, it says, "And if a man, all right, also strive for masteries, yet is he not crowned, except he strive lawfully," man. Okay, now we have to understand, all right, that Apostle Paul is speaking of, he's giving an analogy. The Apostle Paul will always use the analogy of sports, because it's during the Greco-Roman era, so sports and contests, okay, was a major part of their society. All right, and Paul, all right, being a Roman citizen, okay, and also traveling during his ministry, okay, he understood, okay, that culture, okay, that Greco-Roman culture and sports. All right, and remember he's teaching, all right, Israelite foreigners that came up in that culture. So he will always compare, okay, salvation, okay, and rulership with Yahushua as the ultimate prize. Okay, because he knew these Israelite foreigners, they understood that concept. Okay, so here, if you read it, you see, when you read it, it says scribe lawfully. Okay, then that means that you have to play within the rules or whatever contest. Okay, you was playing, you was participating in. Just like now, you look at the Olympics. Okay, well, when you run the 100 meter, you can't false start. Okay, you can't jump early. You gotta wait to the gun. All right, you can't cross over in any lane. Okay, you gotta stay in your lane. Okay, so there's certain you can the only way you can win. Okay, the prize is if you do it within the rules of the contest. Okay. And us in the truth, we've been given rules, okay, and standards of the contest that we have to stay within. We have to strive lawfully, man. Okay. And we're gonna go more into that, but let's get this real quick. I want to get these couple words. Okay, if you boxing, it's certain, rules you gotta abide by. Okay, to be eligible, okay, for the prize, okay, for the belt. Okay, so you go into this word
Strong's G118, athleo, athleo.
athleo, right? Where you get the word athlete. Okay, it says to engage in a contest, to contend in public games, to contend for a prize. All right, and the games that we are into, the contest that we've entered is the contest of salvation, of rulership. All right, it also goes what to endure or to suffer. Okay, because also like an athlete, well, it's a rigorous lifestyle. To be a top athlete, it's a rigorous, okay, lifestyle, rigorous discipline, lifestyle, man. And prophets, we should take on that mindset towards the kingdom, towards salvation. Okay, when it comes to being disciplined, being on our watch, to studying, doing lessons. Okay, to the average man, we will have a rigorous discipline. To most people, a boring life, man. Okay, but we understand, okay, the prize that we're fighting for. Okay, so let's go from there because this word masteries, is the same word for crown, Stephanus in the Greek. All right, or Stephano. All right, it says to encircle with a crown, to crown the victor in a contest, to adore, to adorn, or to honor. This is what we want from YAHAWASHI. Okay, we want that ultimate crown. All right, that ultimate victory. Okay, which is the victory over the beast, because that's the ultimate victory, man. You see, we want to be crowned and have that victory over the beast, as the scriptures go into. Okay, let's get this in Revelation, then we'll go back to it. All right, but we're scribing, like we're competing. Okay, we're not competing with other brothers. Okay, like we're competing against ourselves because the thing to overcome is what the flesh, that old man. We have to constantly wrestle, this nigga, man, to keep him in check. Okay, keep that nigga in submission, which that was another heavy game in the Olympics was wrestling, man. But it's a constant wrestle with that old man, that flesh, and keep that nigga pinned down, in this submission, man. So let's go here. This Revelation 15:2. It says, and I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory. You see that? Over the beast, and this is us in the chariot. So that's the ultimate victory, us in the chariots, man. Okay, and this is what we're striving for. We can't get entangled. That's why I say we're not civilians. Okay, the stakes are high. The stakes don't get no higher. Okay, it says, and over his image and over his mark and over the number of his name and stand on the sea of glass, having the harps, okay, of the Most High. And that sea of glass is us, all right, having that sky view from the chariots looking down through the atmosphere of America, okay, being on fire, man, the lake of fire. Okay. Verse 3, it says, and they sing the song of Moses, the servant of the Most High, and the song of the Lamb, saying, great and marvelous are thy works, Lord, power almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King, okay, of saints. Okay, thou King of saints. You see? So this is the ultimate victory, us on the chariots, man. Okay, and this is what we're striving for. And see, we got to strive, okay, lawfully. You see? Because when you go back to scribing lawfully, all right, you got to play within the rules, okay, of that contest. Now, also, there's Let's go here. Let's go back to it. 2 Timothy 2. Okay, so we must compete in this thing, lawfully. All right. And you see, just like Jake, you see, they can bear false witness on us, you know, these other camps, they call us this and make all these false allegations. We can't do that with them. We got to scribe lawfully, man. We can't bear false witness against them. We can't teach false doctrine for the sake of being popular and trying to be, this well liked. That's not scribing lawfully. That's because that's lying. You know, you see, we can't join the church to, all right, 501c3 to the government, because that's like joining the church to an idol. It's like bringing the idol and setting it up in the temple. Okay, so there's certain things which, okay, we don't get the perks, certain perks, and you know, we don't get certain benefits in particular thing. You see, but see, there's certain things that we just can't do as we compete for, all right, the crown. Okay, you can't take the shortcuts because it's like taking the shortcut in the race. You run the 200, you're coming around that curve, you got to stay in your lane. That's why they stagger them when they start, to make sure everyone is running 200 meters. Okay, because if you're in lane 3 and you're coming around the corner, and just because you ahead, okay, then you jump over the lane 1, well, you just cut down the distance that you have to run because you started a little bit ahead already. Okay, so now we can't take little shortcuts and to try to make it easy on us, man. No, we gotta play, we gotta strive, okay, within the parameters that's been set in the spirit. Okay, well, I said we can't grift the church. You see, you can't do those things. All right, so we scribing lawfully. Okay, it says the husbandman, going back into it, verse 6 said the husbandmen that labor must be first partakers of the fruits. Consider what I say. Okay, and ultimately it's going to be the fruits of the kingdom. This is what we're laboring for. Abaratazar, we're those first fruits, man. Okay, and it says, consider what I say, and the Lord giving thee understanding, all right, in all things. Remember that YAHAWASHI, of the seed of David, was raised from the dead according to my gospel, wherefore I suffer trouble as an evildoer, even unto bonds, but the word is not bound. Yeah, so the Apostle Paul, he was bound. Okay, he was in prison for teaching YAHAWASHI. Okay, but he said the word of the Most High is not bound. Okay, because the word was still going forth. The Lord gave him access to, write these epistles. And then these churches that were set up, they were teaching the gospels. They were teaching the word, So he was bound, but the word was not bound. And see, there's nothing that this devil can do, okay, to cap off this word. He would love to cancel this out, but he can't. All right, because this is above him. Okay? Because even in, the famine of the word, all right, the word will have accomplished everything that the Lord wanted. Okay? So the word of the Most High can't be bound. Okay? So reading on, verse 10, it said, therefore I do all things for the elect's sake, that they may also obtain the salvation which is in YAHAWASHI HaMashiach with eternal glory. So we, endure, everything for the sake of the elects, man, or the elect, Salaki. All right, for the elect's sake. Okay, so the things that we go through in our day to day, there's a lot of things we go through and we don't confess. All right, everything that we go through. Okay, but at the end of the day, the elect got to be edified, man. Okay, the elect have to be edified. You see, and the Apostle Paul, He's speaking, okay, from a place, okay, of experience. All right, because let me see. I think that's in, and we catch all type of hell, man. you know, all type of hell. Because every day we wake up with the odds stacked against us, man. And Satan knows who we are. So there's a different element of hell, all right, and spirits jumping on people, okay, to be resistant unto us, man. Okay. So it's so much, that we go through on a day-to-day basis, but that doesn't matter because the care of the churches, okay, that has to be fulfilled. Our office still has to be fulfilled. So we endure whatever, man. You know, we endure whatever we got to endure. Okay. 2 Corinthians 11:23 says, "Are they ministers of Hamashiach? I speak as a fool, I am more, in labors more abundant, in stripes above measures, in prison more frequent, in death off. Of the Jews 5 times received I 40 stripes, save one. Thrice was I beaten with rods, once was I stoned, thrice I suffered shipwreck, a night and a day I have been in the deep, in journeying often, in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, and perils of my own countrymen, in perils by the heathen, and perils goes into danger, all right, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils on the sea, in perils among false brethren. You gotta think, Paul was on all these missions, man. He had to endure these things, man. Okay, he wasn't on the interstate in the, you know, in the Nissan Maxima. Okay, now when he traveled, he had to go through the wilderness, and you had thieves and robbers, and then his own people in Judea. He had Jake fasting because they wanted to kill the Apostle Paul. Jake said they won't eat till they kill Paul, man. Okay, well, guess what? The word was still going out. Okay, just like today, man. Brothers brothers have had their businesses, ruined. Brothers you know, had to deal with all type of family backlash because of this word, and losing things and put out, and you know all these different things, man. Families ripped away from, it's a bunch. It's a lot, man, from teaching this word. But guess what? The edification still has to go out. Okay, it says in pearls in the city, and pearls in the wilderness, and the pearls in the sea, and pearls amongst false brethren. All right, remember, you have people, these idol makers, Demetrius, you got that in the book of Acts. They wanted to do something to Paul because Jake was turning from idolatry to YAHAWASHI. So that affected their business. Okay. It says in weariness and painfulness, and watches often, in hunger and thirst, and fasting often, in cold and nakedness. Besides these things that are without, that which cometh upon me daily, the care of all the churches. Okay. It said, plus, the things that happen to me daily, just, the little regular shit that happened, you see, but still the care of the churches, man. Okay. So the elect, okay, the men, who, all right, were appointed, okay, to preach this word, okay. Well, guess what? We have to endure, all right, whatever we got to do. We got to bear our cross daily. And this edification still got to go out. Okay, an argument with your woman don't that doesn't mean, oh, I can't teach today. You know, flat tire. You see, you got to handle your business. But guess what? Hey, this word still got to go forth. Okay, certain little things that we encounter. Hey, we got to handle it, and handle our office, man. And the Lord wants us to fight. So the Lord puts us in a situation where we got to fight. The Lord sabotage our situation to see if we're going to fight to get back to where we need to be, because this thing is a fight, man. Yahawashi want to fight. He wants fighters. He's coming to get those men that will fight, man. Okay? 2 Timothy 2:11 says, a faithful saying, for if we be dead with him, we shall also live with him. You see? And how we're dead with him, because Yahawashi died to this world, even while he was living. Okay? He was dead to the world. Okay? He wasn't into Rome. Okay, he was all about the Father's business. Okay? So we die, all right, as he died, all right, to the world. Yahawashi came on assignment. Okay? And what he said, what you know not, when he was 12, he was in the temple. All right? He was on business, he was on assignment. Okay, and he had to tell, his parents, look, I'm about my Father's business. Remember what the angel told you. Okay? So having that mindset of being dead to this world, okay, is putting us, because the more we're dead to this world, the more we're alive in Yahawashi. The more real this thing is to us, man. The more we die to this world and are numb and are checked out of this shit, the more that we are alive into something that's real, and that's Yahawashi, man. Okay, and let's get into Colossians. Read down. So you go to the book of Colossians, chapter 3. Okay, which we always get it. It's the book of Colossians, chapter 3, and verse 1. It says, if you then be risen with Hamashiach, seek those things which are above, where Yahawashi sitteth on the right hand of the Most High. And let's get this in the NLT as well, because let's get this again. It says, since Colossians 3 and 1, it says, since you have been raised to a new life in Yahawashi, see, we've been raised to a purpose, man. This is our real purpose. The shit we was doing before we came into this, even the things that we got to do now to maintain our situation, that ain't the purpose. Okay, we do these things to maintain ourselves in this current situation. Okay, but whatever your career is, whatever you are, you have to go and play this character out in the world. That's not who we really are. That's not our real life. Okay, that's a character we have to put on. It's an avatar we have to put on for the world. Okay, we've been awakened to a new life, our real life, which is in Yahawashi. It says, set your sights on the realities of heaven. Okay, the realities of rulership. Nah, this got to be real to us, man. This thing should be coming more and more real to us, man. Okay, where Yahawashi sits in the place of honor at the Most High's right hand. Think about the things of heaven, not the things on earth, the affairs of this life, man. Let these people have this shit, this never ending, argument and dysfunction. Let these people have this shit, man. All right, say, for you died to this life, and your life is hidden with Yahawashi in the Most High. Okay, so we dead. Okay, that character that people used to know, that nigga is dead, man. He's not on the scene like that anymore. He's constantly drawing back. Okay, and becoming, because that old man is dying and that new man is constantly coming to life, man. Okay, the inward man. You see, and the more we die to this world, the more we give room for the inward man to be born. Okay, it says that when Yahawashi, who is your life, is revealed, to the whole world, you will share, in all his glory. Okay, and when Yahawashi, who is your life, is revealed to the whole world, you will share in all his glory, man. So this is our life now. This is what we do now. And at the coming of Yahawashi, man, who we really are, the glory that's stored up for us, man. We're going to be changed. Are we going to be turned into a mortal right before these people's eyes, man? We're going to go up into, this chariot that's coming to judge the earth, man. That's going to, that's going to be glory, man. To be a part of that exclusive number. Okay, and then just the beginning. Okay, so let's go back here to 2 Timothy 2. Okay, it's the book of 2 Timothy chapter 2. Um, in verse 12 it says, if we endure hardship, all right, we will reign with him. If we deny him, he will deny us, man. So we endure all the hardship that comes with following Yahawashi. All right. And we're not going to be liked. We're not going to be popular. Okay. We're not going to be cute to this world. Okay. We're going to be persecuted. Okay. We're going to lose. All right. Things on this side. Okay. We're going to be outcast. Okay. And that's part of the hardship. You see? And we got more, things to come. All right. But one thing we can't deny Yahawashi to give ourselves, comfort in this world. That's what you see Jake doing. Even when they deny certain parts of the doctrine, they're denying Yahawashi, all right, because they don't want to deal with the hardship, because this world is so anti-Messiah and anti-righteous, okay, that the spirit of Yahawashi is condemned in this world, man. Okay, it's ridiculed, it's looked down upon in this world, man. And since we come in a completely different spirit that's adverse to this world, okay, we come in the spirit of Yahawashi. Hey, that comes with hardships, man. Okay, so you deny any part of the doctrine, you're denying Yahawashi. Captain Tazariak, he didn't want to teach Yahawashi. When old boy asked about, okay, what's next, he should have went into Yahawashi. Yahawashi, that's next. Okay, this prophecy, America been to be obliterated. World War III, he didn't go into those things, man. He started talking about things of this world. He denied Yahawashi. Okay, and Yahawashi finna deny a lot of Israelites, man. It said if we are unfaithful, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny who he is. Okay, so even if in moments of doubt, if Yahawashi is in us, he can't deny himself. You see, Yahawashi can't deny himself, man. We're of the elect. Even in moments of doubt, man, Yahawashi, okay, he's going to show, okay, all right. He's gonna send them faith boosters for us, man. Okay, and that's why it's good to feed the Yahawashi that's in us, man. Okay, it's good to feed the Yahawashi that's in us, man, and it's through fasting, and through prayer, and to reading. Okay, we're just finna get into that. Okay. Feed Yahawashi, man, and that's a faith booster in itself. Feed Yahawashi, because one thing that makes it to where we become doubtful is when we're not engaged. Okay, when we're not active in this thing, we can become doubtful. Speaking from experience, man. Okay, but if Yahawashi is in us, man, he can't deny himself, man. He's gonna he gonna get us in gear. Okay, he says, remind everyone about these things and command them in the Most High's presence to stop fighting over words. Such arguments are useless and they can ruin those who hear them. And this is why we don't do the debate, man. Because you can have this debate and now you don't confuse someone that believes. Okay, that's why these people that follow um uh these other camps, like the Sakari, ISUPK, and these camps that debate. Okay, so you're introducing your congregation to all these different doctrines, and then especially if because debate ain't about the truth and what's right; it's about sounding right. So you have a new believer that's watching this debate, okay, and this debate is seeming, uh, this contending doctrine, okay, is sounding like it's right. They can do detriment. They can be detrimental to someone that's not rooted. Okay, something that's newly planted, and you introducing them to all these different debates, and you're letting these people, just have their say and do this. Nah, man, we got the truth. We don't need to debate the truth. We got the truth. Okay? If someone comes to the camp, okay, and the way the spirit move now, that's even, running dry. Okay, when certain people come to the camp, you might see a dialogue or back and forth, but that's limited. Once someone can't get it, it's time to move on, man. We're not finna, all right, designate 2-3 hours to debate with your ass, man. Okay, because you're bringing that confusion into the church now. Okay, you're giving confusion a platform. Okay, and it can be detrimental to a new believer because those debaters they master sounding right. Okay, and it says work hard so you can present yourself to the Most High and receive His approval. Be a good worker, one who does not need to be ashamed, or who correctly explains the word of truth, man. And we read this in the KJV. It says, study to show thyself approved unto the Most High, man. And we have to study, brothers. We have to have a study regimen, and stay sharp in this thing as much as possible. This is what we're going back to it. We're not civilians, okay? So we got a different regiment, okay, than the normal person, man, the normal man. Okay, so we have to study to show ourselves approved. Okay, because who should know this book better than us, man? Like Elder Apostle Rakai, he made the point. Now at GMS, we're specialists. Okay, we're like the special forces of the truth, man. But it comes with being engaged into this, and you got to study, man. Okay, and you don't got to destroy yourself, studying, because it's a balance with it, but it has to be consistent, man. It has to be. We have to have a consistent regimen, some form of studying, man. Okay, it says a workman that needed not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Be diligent to present yourself approved to the Most High, a worker who does not need to be ashamed. All right, rightly dividing the word of truth. Okay, that was in the KJV. All right, rightly dividing the word, line upon line, precept upon precept, man. Taking heed to the doctrine. Okay, and one thing about it, when you put the work in and studying, man, you're not ashamed. You're not, like I say, that puts just a spirit of confidence, man. Engaging in this word, man, and studying and reading and going into things, that puts a spirit of confidence on us, man. Not confidence in the knowledge we're gaining, confidence that the Lord is dealing with us, man. And we're potent to teach and feed the elect, man. Because it ain't about us. We don't study. So some niggas study just to debate and sound deep. We're not studying for that, man. We're studying first and foremost, all right, to see what we need to change about us, man. Because we read and get cut. The more you read, the more you're going to get cut. Okay? And that shows us the adjustments we need to make. Okay? So reading ain't just, it begins, we read for self-development, man. Okay? And as we, all right, are, being elevated, by our study, then we're able to go teach others. Okay? So we're not just studying and not applying it. We're studying and applying it, and then we're going to teach, man. Okay? It said work hard so you can present yourself to the Most High and receive His approval. All right? Be a good worker, one that does not need to be ashamed, who correctly explains the word of truth. Avoid worthless, foolish talk that only leads to more godless behavior. They were constantly reminding him to stay away from the debaters, man. Because Paul, he did that. He was talking from experience. He lied, he done debated with them niggas, man. So he knew that it didn't get anywhere. Okay. It says this kind or taught spreads like cancer, all right, as in the case of Hymenaeus and Philetus. Okay, so let's go into that real quick. Hymenaeus and Philetus. Okay, just want to go into this. All right. Um, so this in chat. It said Paul the apostle is writing to Timothy, a young church leader, warning him about false teachers who are leading believers astray. In this context, Hymenaeus and Philetus are examples of such men. It said Hymenaeus is also mentioned in 1 Timothy chapter 1, 19 and 20, where Paul says he has shipwrecked his faith, and Paul has handed him over to Satan so he may learn not to blaspheme. The, the phrase means Paul expelled him from, all right, the Christian community for disciplinary purposes, man. Certain Jays get, suspended, certain Jays get kicked out, doing too much, man. All right. Philetus is only mentioned, okay, 2 Timothy 2 and 17 alongside Hymenaeus. It says they were apparently teaching that the resurrection, meaning the general resurrection of believers at the end of time, has already happened, tripping, bugged out. Okay, this likely referred to a spiritualized or symbolic interpretation of resurrection, saying that believers were already resurrected spiritually through conversion and that no future bodily resurrection, okay, would occur. Okay, it said this contradiction the core, all right, belief, okay, because I said the Christian back then, okay, was Israelites that follow YAHAWASHI. All right. It says in a future physical resurrection, and thus undermined the faith of some believers. Paul uses very strong language, calling their teachers gangrene to emphasize how quickly false doctrine can spread and harm the church. He urges Timothy to guard sound teachings, avoid godless chatter, and keep his focus on the truth of the gospel. Okay. In short, Hymenaeus and Philetus were early Christian figures who taught a heretical idea that resurrection had already occurred. Paul publicly rebuked him in his letters to Timothy as examples of how false teachers can corrupt, all right, the faith and community. So these two guys, they had a false doctrine, okay, that they was presenting, and the Apostle Paul was like, look, these niggas are like gangrene, and that's why the Apostle Paul was letting Timothy, like, you got to be on point, okay? Because these niggas are going to keep popping up, okay, with these sensual doctrines, okay? And it's going to spread, okay? So you go back to verse 18, and this is why we call things out, and this is why we address, certain things so these things don't spread, okay? There's always going to be rebuke, okay, and correction and defending the gospel, man. Okay, until we out of here. All right. It said they had left the path of truth, claiming that the resurrection of the dead had already occurred. In this way, they have turned some people away from the faith. But the Most High truth stands firm like a foundation stone with this inscription: the Lord knows who are his, okay, the elect, and all who belong to the Lord may turn away from evil. Okay. And this is what you're seeing amongst the elect. And the elect are just drawing more and more back from this world and cleaving more unto the world to come. Okay, it says in a wealthy home, some utensils are made of gold and silver, and some are made of wood and clay. The expensive utensils are used for special occasions, and the cheap ones for everyday use. Okay, if you keep yourself pure, you will be a special utensil for honorable use. Your life will be clean, and you will be ready for, all right, the master to use you for every good work, man. And we want to be like those special utensils, man, those special vessels, the elect, man. Okay, because if you read this, let's see, let me switch it over. I want to get that word meat. So you go 2 Timothy 2 and 21. It says, if a man therefore purge himself from these, and purge ourselves what? Them old ways, that old man. the filth of this world, okay, what happens? We become, all right, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified and meet for the master's use and prepared for every good work, man. You know, because we're being groomed up to be useful unto YAHAWASHI forever, man. We have to understand what's at stake and what we're a part of and what's happening, man. Okay? So we purge, the more we purge that old nigga, that old man, that old thought process, them old ways, the more useful, okay, the position we put ourselves, we were putting ourselves in a position to be useful.
Strong's G 2173. Euchrestos. Euchrestos.
Euchrestos, all right, which was easy to make use of, useful. You see, so the Lord is fashioning us to be useful, man, and He's doing it through this word. Okay, you brothers, you know, and you sisters as well. You're being fashioned to be useful. The men are being fashioned to be useful to YAHAWASHI, and you women, okay, you few sincere sisters, you're being fashioned to be useful for those men. Okay, which that's a position of honor. Okay, so going back, where we at? Okay, it says verse 20. Verse 22 says, 2 Timothy 2 and 22 says, flee also useful lust, but follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace, all right, with them that call on the Lord out of a pure heart, man. You know, out of sincerity, man. So we flee, you know, useful lust. You know, this world, you know, conditions people to just chase these youthful lusts till they die. All right, the fantasy of becoming rich and famous. You know, it's a useful lust, man. You know, just following, you know, the flesh and, you know, want to live for pleasure 24/7. Okay, and party spirit, chasing women, you know, all that's useful lust. Okay, because it's all vanity. Nah, we're building now. You know, so we're following after righteousness, man, faith, charity, you know, peace. And it says, with them that are called on the Lord out of a pure heart, man. We tapped into the true family, man. The more longer we're in this thing, the more we should be tapped into the true family. Okay, which is that of the hopeful elect, man. Those that are like-minded, that are sincere about this thing, man. Okay, so this is what we're following after now. You see, it said, but foolish and unlearned questions avoid, knowing that they do gender strifes, and that the servant of the Lord must not scribe, but be gentle unto all men, apt to teach. All right, that's why we got to study so we can be on point, because we're not gonna know everything. There's gonna be certain things that I got, but that keeps us humble too, because it keeps us something to occupy ourselves with. What we don't know, and we need to tap into it. You know, you're gonna forget things. You're not gonna be okay 100%, man. Well, we should be, you know, sharp. You know, constantly trimming our lamps. You know, after teach. It says in meekness, instructing those that oppose themselves, the Most High peradventure will give them repentance to the acknowledging of the truth, man. Every time we do a lesson, okay, we're giving, you know, like this is instructing in meekness, man. Okay, breaking these things down and pre-adventure, you know, because if you're not in this truth, by default you oppose it, you know. So uh there's new believers that come in, all right, through these daily instructions that's going on, these daily teachings, man. Okay, it says and that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, all right, who are taken captive by him and his will, man. All right. And this is the snare Esau has in the earth. But everything outside this truth is a snare. It goes back to this guy. Okay. So that's the point, you know, Lord will. All right, you brothers. All right, and you sisters edify once again. We give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashi, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers, and peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom.